Welcome back to Metis IAS. We have cracked the political and administrative DNA of GS2 mains paper earlier. Today we enter the most hazardous territory in the entire UPSC mains examination. That is one of the most misunderstood territories in UPSC mains. That is General Studies paper 3, which consists of economy, agriculture, industry, infrastructure, science and technology, disaster management, environment, and internal security. Today we are going to discuss part 1, that is economy, agriculture, industry, and infrastructure. We are classify GS3 paper into two parts, that is economy and agriculture part 1, and the second one is environment, S&T, internal security, disaster management. In the part 1 we are going to discuss about economy, agriculture, industry, and infrastructure. From 2013 to 2025 prelims previous year's questions analysis. So historically, this has been one of the lowest scoring papers in the entire exam, where the students convert their knowledge into marks has been struggled for many years. But not because of the syllabus is difficult, but it because students treat GS3 like a generic dumping ground for current affairs. They mindlessly, they mindlessly gather budget numbers, they compile economic survey data, they inject monthly current affairs magazines directly into their brains. But today, we are not participating in passive information collection. We are doing something else. We are conducting a clinical structural autopsy on 13 years of past year questions. That is from 2013 to 2025 questions. We are not here to memorize questions. We are here to decode the structural shift. We are here to decode what the examiner rewarded. We are decode. We are here to decode what they gradually stopped valuing, and exactly how your preparation must evolve to dominate upcoming mains 2026 cycle. UPSC is not testing your ability to memorize a business newspaper. The examiner is testing your ability to diagnose a structural economic illness. From knowledge to concept, concept to application, application to trade-offs, trade-off to structural diagnosis. This is the great shift from 2013 to 2025. So as far as as far as previous year's questions papers as far as GS3 is concerned, the shift is inclusive metric from growth to resilience. The questions framing has been changed from growth to distribution, distribution to inclusion, inclusion to capability, capability resilience in 2025 from 2013. So for this, we are decoding as engines. We are taking syllabus topics as engine. So let us open the engine one, that is Indian economy. For this, what exactly changed in the examiner's mind? Look at the chronological trail of the paper. When it comes to 2013, they are asked questions regarding FRBM Act, tax expenditure, and food security mechanics. In 2013, they asked questions like this on FRBM, tax expenditure, GST, food security mechanics. Again, 2014 and 2016, they asked questions like service-led growth, jobless growth, FDI gaps, informalization versus formalization. In this 2014 to 2016, you observed they asked about growth and employment. They focused on these pillars. They asked questions majorly on growth and employment. Then comes to the 2017 to 2020, move on. They asked questions regarding Niti Aayog versus Planning Commission and protectionism and currency wars, trade wars, potential GDP, GST federal tensions. Because on that time, trade trade tensions have been around the world and implications and the impact of GST federal tensions. Then comes to 2021 to 2022. They asked about V-shaped recovery questions, GDP computation methodology shifts, labor activity parameters. The base year, the current year of rates also changed from 2021. So you have to understand the shift where comes to where end, where goes. As far as 2023 and 2024 questions, the shift have been changed dramatically because they focused on digitalization ecosystems, structural unemployment. They introduced the care economy, the labor codes, persistent food inflation. So the, the asking of questions has been changed tremendously. Move to digitalization, move to new type of economies, care economy, and move to structural unemployment because the unemployment is going like anything. So inflation also has been, particularly food inflation also taking place in very rapidly. So you have to understand the observation and direction of UPSC has been changed from the years. You have to mold your preparation on that lines only rather than definition like definition like preparation. So you have to understand the shift. Why? Because you, with the shift only you have to mold your preparation and you have to change your preparation rather than static preparation. So as far as 2025 is concerned, they asked about human development index versus inequality adjusted human development index and a physical health index. So once you have to understand from 2013 to 2025, in 2013 they asked about simple questions, direct questions from like FRBM Act. Next they asked about growth. The, in after the growth they asked about distribution questions. Then resilience. So when comes to the 2021, questions have been changed dramatically. 2021 they asked recovery questions. 2023 they asked care economy. 2024 they asked about labor codes which were implemented. 2025 they asked about inequality related human development index and physical health. So finally you have to observe the trajectory carefully. When you observe the trajectory carefully, earlier papers evaluated whether absolute growth could be generated or not. Simple. They are straightforward questions. In the middle year shifted to evaluate how the growth is distributed across sectors rather than growth. Then recent papers explicitly evaluate whether that growth is resilient, inclusive and institutionally sustainable. So The examiner moved from asking how does the economy grow to asking who benefits from this growth, who gets structurally excluded, what institutional friction blocks last mile delivery. The change has been tremendously understandable and tremendously observable. So it leads to absolute growth, to sectoral inclusion, to individual capability and systemic resilience. The growth pattern, the question direction has been changed from absolute growth to systemic resilience. For this, how to write an answer comes to answer writing. Average answer still write simple textbook definitions of GDP and poverty. But high scoring answers isolate the structural illness, employment quality, distribution friction, productive capacity barriers, and state capability constraints. And comes to average answer, definition, schemes, conclusion, etc. etc. Comes to the top answer or high scoring answer, structural cause. They identified structural cause, institution, the structural cause, then distributional impact, then institutional response, trade off, and the way forward. Should be deep, analytical, and applied. So, in this way, you have to write the answer. UPSC rewards depth over details. UPSC rewards depth over details. Comes to mains 2026 strategy. After observation and understanding and observation of these papers, what should be 2026 strategy? Stop focusing on absolute growth numbers. Start studying the mechanics of distributive friction. For every economic topic you have to do is you must execute the Metis diagnostics test. What is the Metis diagnostic test here is what is the structural bottleneck. For every economic topic you have to question like this: what is the structural bottleneck, who is affected by the distributive friction, and what institutional response exists to mitigate the risk. This type of preparation is need of the hour for 2026 mains cycle. We have completed economy part, Indian economy, and we are comes to agriculture part. This is Indian number 2. I'm asking you one question straight away. Did UPSC abandon traditional agriculture? No, but this is where the coaching industry completely fails the student. Aspirants are still reading outdated textbooks on soil types and basic green revolution metrics in 1970s. Look at the actual trajectory of the question paper. Let's take the questions from 2015 to 2016. They asked questions on contract farming mechanics and micro irrigation penetration. This is also input side of the production side of the questions. The agriculture questions has been changed from input to market. What is the input method? Input method to production, production to productivity, then processing, then market value capture. In simple way, input to production, production to storage, storage to processing, then market. The questions have been changed from input to market type. So from 2017 and 2019, they asked questions on crop diversification barriers. They asked questions on millets and nutritional security and watershed management execution. So this is all questions are input side of questions. Comes to the production type of questions. Crop diversification barriers, millets, nutritional security, and watershed management execution. From 2020 to 2022, the transport and upstream marketing, integrated farming system, food processing bottlenecks. They move from production to processing, storage to processing. The questions have been changed from input to processing. So 2023-25, the questions has been changed to mostly market oriented. E-technological, e-technology aid, input subsidies realities, precision irrigation, buffer stock dynamics, high value crop selection and supply management. But not confirming that the questions of production has been not ended. So the questions of related production also appeared in the examination, but reducing the number. They focusing on market style, supply chain management rather than production side of agriculture. So this is the observation from 2013 to 2025 agriculture questions shift. So the questions have been changed from production to diversification, diversification to processing, processing to value chain, then value chain to resilience. The shift has changed storage, market, price, technology, and risk. So, after this observation carefully, static agriculture basics are still tested, but production never disappointed from the paper. But production never disappear from the paper. Production alone no longer completes the answers. Movement across the value chain increasingly determines marks. Then input to production, production to productivity, productivity to processing, processing to supply chain to value capture, then ultimate leads to climate resilience. The questions now are focusing on value capture and climate resilience from 2023-2025 onwards. So that one line will become memorable. But static knowledge alone no longer completes your answer. The evaluation chain has been completely expanded from input to production, production to productivity, productivity to diversification, diversification to processing, processing to supply chain to value capture to climate resilience. Why I am repeating again is that is this these are the most important things in the changing shift, structural shift in the agriculture as far as GS paper 3 is concerned. So now UPSC evaluates agriculture strictly as an integrated economic system. Recent papers heavily reward students who can map the movement of a commodity from the field to the market, like field to market. Your answer can no longer stop at the input layer, like seed, water, yield. Your answer must aggressively target the downstream reality, that is storage infrastructure, market access blocks, price discovery inefficiencies, and agri-tech development and agri-tech deployment. So you have to address the all questions not only in the production side, you have to address the downstream reality also regarding storage infrastructure, then market access, then price discovery inefficiencies, then agri-tech deployment. This side also you have to address the answers. After understanding and observation of all these years questions, what should be the implication for mains 2026 strategy? For that, do not write your answer like a traditional textbook farmer. Write your answer like an agricultural supply chain manager. Whenever you study an agricultural theme, Cross-examine it with this checklist. What is the checklist? What is the crop choice matrix? Who handles primary processing? What logical what logistical leakages exist during transport? Who captures the actual financial value? And where is the core climate vulnerability? When you come across with an agriculture theme when you are studying, please ask these questions yourself. What are they? I'm repeating again. What is the crop choice matrix? Who handles primary processing? What logistical leakage exists during transport? Who captures the actual financial value? Where is the core climate vulnerability? This type of questions you have to ask when you come across with the exa- agriculture topic for preparing 2026. Then we are moving to engine number 3, that is industry infrastructure capability. Then what is the hidden demand in the industrial planning? What is the hidden demand in industrial planning? Let us look at the infrastructure first. Investment and industry through the PYQ lens. From 2013 to 2017, they asked about PPP models, that is public private partnership, then FDI inflows, industrial growth slowdowns, core energy matrix, core energy infrastructure. Then 2018 to 2021, they asked about digital physical connectivity, infrastructure access, renewable energy targets. Then again 2022, they asked about public-private partnerships re-evaluation. After 2013 to 2017, they asked in 2022 regarding public-private partnership re-evaluation. Comes to the 24 to 25, they asked about electronic tolling operations, regional connectivity corridors, production linked incentive schemes, that is PLI schemes, semiconductor ecosystems, and trade fragmentation. So, after understand and observation of these 2013 to 2025 questions, they, they changed from PPP to FDI, industrial growth, energy market, energy infrastructure, then digital physical connectivity infrastructure access, then renewable energy targets, then again PPP re-evaluation, then move to electronic tolling operations. This is comes to the infrastructure also regional connectivity corridors, production linked incentive schemes, semiconductor ecosystems, and trade fragmentation. The change has been completely understandable. So infrastructure as a topic remained, but the evolution parameters completely evolved. Earlier, the mandate was simple: build capacity. Today, the global economic order has fractured. Protectionism is rising. The modern mandate has shifted. Build capability, infrastructure, and technology are no longer treated as standalone, descriptive, or engineering subjects. They are evaluated as a critical capability systems. The hidden question across the modern paper is: can India build resilient, productive capacity in an era of strategic economic sovereignty? Previously, they focused on build capacity, but now they asked resilience. Can India build resilient, productive capacity in an era strategic economic sovereignty? Then dependency to vulnerability, vulnerability to capability, institution, then macroeconomic trade-off. The change from dependency to trade-off. This is the shift you have to understand, observe from infrastructure engine. Comes to answer writing, average answers list standard bullet point features of the PLI scheme or semiconductor subsidies. But comes to high scoring answer, explain implementation constraints and institutional outcomes. They prove how schemes like the Indian Semiconductor Mission are strategic tools designed for technology decoupling. And they show what institutional mechanisms are required to navigate trade fragmentation. The shift is not from globalization to total isolation. It is the structural shift from pure cost efficiency to absolute supply chain resilience. The shift from capacity to resilience, supply chain resilience. You have to understand the shift. Then comes to Mains 2026 strategy. Whenever you analyze an industrial or infrastructure asset, ask four questions to yourselves. What are they? What external dependency makes us vulnerable? What deep tech capability is being built to bridge the gap? What regulatory or financial institution supports this rollout? And what long-term macroeconomic trade-offs remain? You have to ask yourself these four questions because dependency to supply chain resilience, that is the shift you have to observe. Then comes to the Metis execution rule. What is the Metis execution rule? How do you conquer GS-3 economy and agriculture at your study desk? You stop writing like an academic economist and you start writing like an economic administrator. You must fundamentally shift your answer architecture away from the traditional low scoring format, that is definition to scheme list to generic conclusion. You have to avoid this type of answer. You have to write macro diagnosis, then micro impact, then policy and institutional execution. This type of answer is need of the hour right now. The macro diagnosis, in the macro diagnosis, you have to identify the structural bottleneck immediately. Is it supply chain friction? Is it a lack of technological sovereignty? Is it a physical deficit at the state level? In the macro diagnosis, you have to understand these things and cover these things. Then comes to the micro impact. Show who losses. Explain exactly how this bottleneck stalls inclusive growth, impacts jobs, or threatens long-term resource sustainability. Then move to the policy execution. Offer the modern institutional or tech-driven solution the state is deploying, like the physical health index or advanced clean room metallurgy. Elevate your vocabulary, drop weak coaching market phrases like helping farmers or improving the economy, etc. etc. You have to write precise administrative weapons like supply chain resilience, capability creation, institutional friction, productive inclusion, storage decoupling, etc. Like diagnosis, impact, institution, and execution. This is the type of high yield mark answer structure. Then, after considering all these three engines like economy, agriculture, and industry infrastructure related engines, The answer structures also we have discussed so far. How to write a good answer, and we discussed how to prepare for mains 2026 also. So today we did not mindlessly memorize 13 years of past questions. We reconstructed them. The message from the data is clear, very clear. Information still matters, but information without a structural diagnosis is a liability in this paper. GS3 did not become random or unpredictable. The evaluation parameters simply become more demanding, like critical minerals, etc., new renewable energy, that type of economy is going to ask, supply chain resilience, etc. The student who recognize that shift prepare completely differently. From this exact day onward, every single GS3 topic you study must pass through the Metis 4-layer test. That is concept, friction, institution, and application. Concept, friction, institution, and application. If you if your self-made notes cannot answer those four pillars, your preparation is incomplete. In our next session, in our next session, we move to the second half of the GS3, that is environment hydrology, disaster engineering, frontier science and technology, and the brutal reality of internal security networks. Stop collecting empty data and start decoding the patterns. Today we did not revise economy. We diagnosed how UPSC evaluates economy. Growth alone is no longer enough. The evaluator increasingly rewards concept, friction, institution, and applications. I am repeating again, concept, friction, institution, applications. Stop collecting, start decoding the patterns. This is Metis IAS. I will see you in the next session.